Hey, welcome to Creative Vitality Jam Sessions. Here we have intimate conversations with amazing dance and theater artists about reimagining creativity and supporting and building community. I'm Helen Pickett, and today's guest is Hope Muir. She is the artistic director of Charlotte Ballet. Hope and I have known each other since 2000. Hey, Hope!
Hello.
Hi!
Hi there. How are
There
you?
you are in your cozy little Charlotte home. It's so good to see you.
Nice to see you, Helen.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but we have some more time to view Incognito, right?
Yes, it's going to be available on both platforms on YouTube and Facebook and the Charlotte Ballet website. Through that link, you can see it for, a little bit longer.
Great, great. So you and I have known each other since 2013. We met at the Scottish Ballet where you were the assistant artistic director, right?
Correct, yeah.
And you stage work for Christopher Bruce and Crystal Pite.
Correct.
You have choreographed yourself as well.
Little bit.
Yeah, and the Fringe Festival, right, at Edinburgh.
Yeah, sort of self-produced a project there, which was a really good learning curve. But yeah, a choreographer, that's like, I just tested the water at that.
And you and I also share our deep respect and love for Jack Kerouac.
Yes, something that we discovered quite early on, I think, when we met, that we both liked and had an interest in the Beat Generation, yeah.
Actually, you know what I just remembered? I remembered that you got these tickets for us at the Edinburgh Festival. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It was Philip Glass, and who was reciting?
Patti Smith.
Patti Smith.
Yeah.
And Philip Glass was like her backup band. It was amazing. And
that Playhouse Theatre in Edinburgh, one of the largest theatres in the UK, was sold out for poetry. I was like, it was
all ages.
All ages.
All ages. It was, you and I were sitting there in awe. We were like, we can't believe we're actually witnessing this.
It was amazing.
It's amazing. So Hope, actually, this is about you. So can you tell the Creative Vitality community a bit more about yourself, what you're doing now?
Well, been in Charlotte now just over 3 years. Obviously, with the challenge recently, we're just doing stuff online and keeping the dancers active. But when I arrived here, the company's gone through a massive transformation in terms of the repertoire and the people we've been working with. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey so far. Really good.
Great. 3 years, right?
Correct, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, so we also have a history together at Charlotte, which I love. Can you give me or recount one example of how you've created or recreated, I should say, your reimagined, there we go, your creative life, and how that shift might have motivated you or redirected you or refocused you?
It's
even
funny
if
when
it's a regular life.
Yeah, when you approached me about this, I thought a lot about creativity and just that word, and wondered really to myself, when did I realize or think I was ever creative? Because I'm not sure in the early years of training that I was ever aware of that. Yes, I had an active imagination, but the vigorous training, as you know, in classical ballet doesn't leave a lot of room for conversation. No. Or, approaching it in different ways depending on what your training background has been. And then when you get into a core, I was like, you're still standing in the right place at the right time. And, everything is very much dictated.
Yeah.
And I was wondering to myself, gosh, am I creative? And I think it was when I started working with choreographers and there became that dialogue and your opinion was asked, you were kind of, involved in the process. And that when I started to really understand that that's the way it could be, that's when I left the big classical company and went to a contemporary company, because I suddenly felt like it released something in me, something that I found very satisfying and very challenging, and something that really has driven me in every career move. Yeah. I've wanted to become a better communicator, and that started really with choreographers initially. starting that dialogue in the studio,
Yeah.
which was something I think I was starved of for a long time.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of really important points. It's the responsibility in that give and take situation, and it's the communication. And that is a lifelong pursuit, isn't it? Of that give and take of that dance, excuse me, but it's true.
Yeah.
The dance of the give and take and the responsibility between you, your dancers, you and the choreographer, and that constant negotiation of communication.
Mm-hmm.
I love that part of it too. I think that's what also drives me to keep going, is that dive in,
And that when I'm teaching, I know that there are a million different ways to describe or get a result out of a dancer, and everyone reacts to the stimuli in different ways. So I find that fascinating in terms of how do I use the language to get what I want out of them, or what the choreographer wants. Because when I'm staging work, and this is actually where this really came into play with me, I was so, I was so committed to trying to make every choreographer's voice come over in the most authentic way for them, that I tried to devise systems of how to get the results in the studio. And a lot of that came through writing down the language that the choreographer would use. So when you come back to restage something, the dancers would recall, yeah, that was the feeling, that was the motivation, that was the intention.
Yeah.
And once I started to build on that, those practices and that kind of passion I have has really helped me into the next phase as a director, because now it's about communicating with my public, with my board, with people that might want to underwrite a ballet, and I have to find a way in to connect with them and get them as excited and passionate about the work as I am.
Yeah, and you're talking about listening too, right? Because you're talking about listening. First of all, pick up what you said. You're talking about listening to a choreographer's language. You're talking about listening to your audience, listening. I always say with partnering is listening. So something that I have to say also to the CBJS community is that you actually set a duet for me that you've never seen. And it's because I've worked with you and I see the way you communicate and how you're in there and you're basically putting it into yourself. You're understanding it here to also be able to divulge that information in all the different ways that they might need to hear it.
Yeah. And that was scary, and it could have gone really, really wrong. Let's not, you know what I mean? with a different choreographer, because when I watched it and I was analyzing it in order to, and I hadn't seen it live, it was only one video.
Yeah.
And then you were coming and you were like, oh, just, put a loosely together. But I was like, took that so seriously and was trying to think, well, what was the intention here? Why is this movement falling into that? What I couldn't really get was the floor pattern, or the how you the architecture of it, because with a flat recording, it's very difficult to see that. But yeah, that was scary. But then you were so generous, and there were some things that weren't right, but it was really nice. And I think that's when we connected, because you kind of also saw how seriously and how much I valued the work.
Oh, I knew that in Scotland already. Girl, I knew that. That's you. Do you have an insight to share? I think we might have already talked about all this, but because you gave us a lot of insights about, yeah, you do. Do you have something that can spark inspiration for the listeners? Something that a go-to, whether it could be the natural world, it could be something, something you'd go to, a piece of music, something that allows you to fall into your creativity or fall into that creative place.
Isn't it funny that to navigate new directions, sometimes we need to go back to the things that we love and know the most. And I tend to always fall back into the very early classical music that kind of grounds me. And I remember who I was then and how far I've come now. And then that music, I will suddenly see it in a completely different way, because I am now 10, 20 years older. And then somehow things seem possible, like, do you know what I mean? To know something so well and then to reinvent it. And then the things that I've never done that kind of gives me a confidence to say, it's all right, you can try this, it's something new, it's scary, but it'll work out. But I tend to go back to my early introduction to classical music. I tend to listen to Mahler, and I tend to listen to Richard Strauss and things like that, that really engaged me in the beginning when I was dancing.
Well, I think that is, I love this answer, because the platform is about reimagining creativity. You're reimagining, you're going back to that place to keep picking out or folding back in. It's beautiful. Well, do you have an exercise tip or a self-care tip, or a dance or movement thing you do to, I don't know, anything like that?
I've started lots of new strategies for keeping active during this time, but I tend to do a ballet bar. I'm teaching the company, obviously, most days. We have one of our dancers is a Pilates instructor, so we all meet in the morning and do some Pilates mat together, which is amazing, just also for the social element of it. And then at my age, I need to cross train because the body just, it's difficult, it's tough. So I started doing some circuits, and I'm finding that's been really helpful for cardio in the absence of a gym. I know you and I, Helen, we love an elliptical, don't we? So it's
we say hi to each other in the gym, like before or after.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I just always, again, I try and shock my body and do different methods so it doesn't get into a pattern, because I feel like my body doesn't respond to the same stimuli anymore.
Yeah, I think they've kind of proven that, right? Anyhow.
Yeah.
Last question. As a part of this CBJS platform, I believe in supporting and building community. What would you like to see shift in terms of building a more equitable community?
This is a really good and really, you know, tough question. And I loved, it was Francesca, isn't it, on your opening session, that was talking about how the responsibility to what we put on stage needs to reflect that community, needs to be a photograph of your community. And coming here to Charlotte, that's been a huge, huge responsibility for me. And I've found that to help that process, and I'm totally in agreement with what Francesca said, but for me to help that happen, it needs to be about access. It needs to be about where are we providing those classes? Where are we doing shows that might not be in a traditional space? So it's, you know, not the price of the ticket that's stopping people from seeing dance, that we're allowing them, even right now with this digital platform. It's amazing, you know, to be able to share some of this work in people's homes, so that, like you said earlier, the younger generation is saying, I can do that. I can, that's possible for me. I can have a career in dance. I can be a choreographer. I can be a lighting designer. Exactly. It's all so amazing. So by educating and giving access to all parts of our community, I think is what is going to provide that kind of, that photograph, so that we look like our community on stage.
Beautiful. Hope, I miss you. It's always so good talking to you, even in this virtual way. I want to remind everybody to go to charlotteballet.org for more information about Hope and the company and all the stuff they're doing. It's quite a remarkable place. Hope, if you would stay with me while I do the rest of my spiel here. CBJS is live twice a week, every Wednesday at 2 and every Sunday at 1. And our next guest on Wednesday is actually someone that we both know and love, Christopher Hampson from the Scottish Ballet. He is the executive and artistic director of Scottish Ballet. And then in the box below, but only after this is put onto my YouTube channel, which I found out last week, you'll find more information about CBJS. You'll find links to our social media and other info, and also the bio of Hope. And my excellent Jedi co-producer, Gracie Spina. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank the resilient and beautiful dance community that we are all a part of. I want to thank you guys for watching and supporting this. And I want to thank Hope again. Let's together, we move and meet and motivate each other as much as we can. See you Wednesday, and stay creative.